All right. Good morning. That's funny, I can't see anyone. But I believe you can hear me and you can see me. And I'm not talking only to myself. Right. So what is an hour in the place that you are watching from? Are you from Europe? Are you from Americas? Asia? Somewhere? Yeah, I know we hear you, that you hear me and you see me. I'm just wondering how many of you are there and where are you coming from? All right, Europe. And Europe again. I'm just wondering if there is someone who is just about to go sleep, like Galen, for whom it is almost midnight in just a minute. Hello, everyone from Belgium, UK, Netherlands, Paris, so France. Galen, sorry, we should start. So, Galen, if you have nothing from your side, I'll just start my session. Galen, 3, 2, 1, checking. All right, anyway. So, good morning for those of you who are from Europe. Good afternoon for those who are just somewhere more to the west, and then good evening for Americas. So it's 9 a.m. in Central European time, so this is about to start the session. Let me just switch to the slide deck and let's get this thing rolling. So first of all, just mark your calendars that the next year's conference is planned for March, and hopefully we have the situation worldwide stable enough to really kick it off. Also, we have to be very thankful for our sponsors who, even though this event is taken on live, are still supporting the communities and supporting such an events. So thank you very much. And okay, so a few words about me. My name is Tomasz Poszytek, for those of you who haven't checked the sessions details. I'm going from Poland, from Warsaw. I'm Business Applications MVP, and well, frankly speaking, I'm just working with Microsoft technologies for so many years that I just lost my count. For many years, I've been also working with the Power Platform and with the processes, with business processes and business applications as well as in general. And prior to that, I was for long years business analyst, and so this is somehow now easier for me to actually work with all those low-code, no-code tools that I'm just using to actually digitalize processes and users' needs. All right. One important information is that you can as well join the raffle. So if you would like to take part in the raffle, simply visit the community zone and answer the questions. So you'll be able to win one of those 3 Oculus Quests. I think there is one per each region. All right, yes, for one for Americas, APAC, and EMEA. So the chances are that you can win. I don't know if high or not. Last one announcement is that this event is also cooperating with the charity. So if you have any spare money and you'd like to donate any kind of well, of those organizations, then feel free to visit those URLs and simply follow up with the instructions. And last one thing, if you have any questions during the presentation, then please either post them in the Q&A. Galen is moderating Q&A. I will also try to have a look from time to time. Oh, but there is no other way. You can actually ask questions. So yes, use Q&A and ask questions that way. All right. Okay, we have been here. So what is the agenda for today? The first, I want to talk about the story. So what is Adaptive Cards? What is its technology? Then about message cards, then about the message cards. So what was before the Adaptive Cards, just to give you a big overview. Then about the Adaptive Cards, and then about the future, speaking about the roadmap and about some announcements that were said during the Microsoft Build conference, as David and Matt were doing their session as well. Okay. Come on. Fine. So what is card? What is Adaptive Card? What is message card? So we as the users, when we are consuming social media, we are consuming applications, especially those dedicated to communication, we are able to actually identify those areas within the UI that are actually parts of that can be like taken out, that are just encapsulated blocks of content that we can simply identify. And even if we navigate from one application to another, we still can see them because they are just adopting to a different user interface, to a different user experience of those host applications. But in the end, they're just showing the same content. So in the end, when we are talking about the cards, we can simply create this definition that cards are actually used to display the content that we are creating as authors, but following or according to the host experience. So this is the host, this is the application that displays those cards, that actually sets the interface, the colors, the fonts, those parts of the content that actually are independent from the authoring area. Now, what is the history of the Adaptive Cards? So first in 2016, Microsoft realized that they have like a couple of teams working particularly on the same topic. They were researching, for example, bot framework team or the bot team were researching the kind of adaptive cards. The Exchange team was working on actionable messages. There was also Windows team working on live tiles. And so they just realized that, hey, why should we have those teams independent? Why should we have those teams split? If we can join their forces, if we can join their knowledge and simply create sort of a unified solution to, well, serve the same purposes. And so later, I mean, next year, Matt Hittinger and David Clow set up the team. Their purpose was actually to build this unified technology. And just in the same year, they have announced the message card. So the first function, the first solution based on actionable messages originating from the Exchange team. And just within a year, they have published the first productive version of Adaptive Cards that we are using actually until today, that is being developed and still extended with new features. These slides are making me crazy. Okay, so who is David and who is Matt? Or maybe the other way out. This is Matt Hittinger. He is now working as a principal program manager at Microsoft. Prior to joining Microsoft, he was working as a program manager, as a project manager, overseeing delivery of mobile apps for big for big companies, and working on such position, on such projects. He was able to actually learn a lot about user expectations regarding the UX, regarding the UI. So he has a wide knowledge about these expectations and needs, actually. And then once he joined Microsoft and starting to create a team, he also started to be a very active community member. He's speaking at the user groups. He's active at Twitter. He's also organizing a monthly Adaptive Cards community call. So if you're interested, simply join and listen to what we're talking about. Now, the next person is David Lowe, who is working for Microsoft for many years, for I think over 15 years already. And before he joined this team, before he set up the team actually, he used to be working in Exchange team. He was one of the creators, or even the principal author of the AWS managed API. And then once he transitioned to Adaptive Cards team, he's now also serving or hosting the principal program manager position. And he, for example, created the Adaptive Cards designer, the one that you can create the cards using the drag and drop approach that I will show you in a moment, or maybe just sometime later. All right. So what makes those cards built by Microsoft so special? First of all, these cards are natively rendered on any platform that has the SDK implemented. They, as I said, automatically adapt to the host user experience. So in the end, you don't have to focus on creating a different layouts or different content per each device where you want to display the card. For example, different content for Exchange, for iOS, for Android, or for the web. You simply focus on content, you craft the layout of the content, so horizontal, vertical, table, whatever. But then the rest of the work is done actually by the host. So the background color, the fonts, families, the colors, paddings, borders, whatever, everything else is done actually by the host. And therefore, this technology is actually very low cost because, as said, you don't have to focus on each device, and you don't have to focus to create this content to display perfectly in each device, because that's the host job. And lastly, because you design those cards using JSON, just JSON, and this is a purely declarative approach to create the content. And therefore, this is very safe technology as well, because if you put anything that is outside of this JSON schema, it is simply not going to be displayed and rendered. So there is no way you can inject a malicious code into those cards. What next? Cards is not only a platform for power users, for citizen developers, and it's not only meant for showing content. It's also meant for digesting the content and interacting with the content. So if you're a developer, you can extend the schema. If you're missing any kind of action or functionality within the schema, or you want to display things differently, you can actually just grab SDK, extend it, and then use in your applications that extended schema. Plus, as I said, within the cards, you can not only show content and display information, but as well interact with users. So you can put URLs, you can put get links, you can put inputs, so you can create forms and get data back from users. And also, it is important from the day one, this technology is supporting the text-to-speech applications. So even for the people with some disabilities, with seeing disabilities, this technology is very useful because this can be read. All right. Galen, if there are any questions, please give me a note. Okay, no questions so far. Cool. Fine, so I'll just jump very fast to message cards. And so the message cards were born as actionable messages. So first we had the actionable messages that actually we do have until today, but they have evolved as well. Today, when we think about the message cards, this is a technology of the past. And even if we go into Microsoft Docs and open the Microsoft Docs for, for message cards, there is a big warning information that this is obsolete, and if you just can't then transition to Adaptive Cards. The cool thing that we can do, on the other hand, with message cards is that we can send them over the webhooks or via the webhooks to Microsoft Teams. That actually allows some additional to cover some additional scenarios that Adaptive Cards just can't do. But because this is no longer developed, no longer extended, therefore this technology has a lot of less functionalities, and the schema is a lot of, let's say, more flexible than the Adaptive Cards. So this is the schema of message cards. So if you look carefully, you can just identify two major areas. The first one is a section that is built from the activity, the text blocks, and the facts, and that's actually all we can put inside there. And then if you'd like to put more text blocks, then you have to multiply the sections. And always below, always at the bottom of all the content, there is the place that we can put actions. And that's it. So that's very strict. that's very fixed layout that we can work with. And actually, this is all I wanted to say about the message cards. I don't want to go actually into details because, as said, that's that. But on the other hand, we have adaptive cards that are with us since June 2018. So the reason why the message cards were just put aside was that their schema, their approach was just not flexible enough to be really taken as a basis, as a fundament for the further development, and therefore the new technology was developed, the new technology was created, called the adaptive cards. And actually, every good features, every good functionalities from message cards were somehow transitioned to adaptive cards, such as controls, such as layouts, containers, but a lot of things were changed. Plus, today, adaptive cards have, or the technology has a lot of more advanced schema, so we can do a lot of more things. And this is also an open source technology. We have open source SDKs. It is also available on any platforms. So today, Adaptive Cards SDK can be found actually in majority of Microsoft Communications applications. So if you'd like to post those adaptive cards to Outlook, Teams, bot framework, I mean, bots built on bot framework, then sure you can do it, because everywhere there you have the SDK already present. So the only job you have to actually do is to create a JSON and send it in an appropriate way so that the host knows what to do with it. Plus, you can grab the SDK and actually create your own application. So you can put it in your PHP application, Java application, whatever application, because today we have a lot of platforms that the Adaptive Cards SDK is already present or is created for to be used with. So you can build your own applications on Android, iOS, even on Flutter and React Native. So on those frameworks, this is available as well. And this schema for adaptive cards, this is the schema for version 1.0. Today we have version 1.2 productively working. But the major difference between 1.0 and 1.2, apart from having a lot of new controls and let's say features available, is that since version 1.1, this schema, this let's say fixed layout that we have body and actions, is now more flexible. So actually we can use a block that is called an action set and put this action set anywhere inside the schema or inside the body layout, so that we can have, for example, a column set and actions, text block and actions, and not only have those actions at the bottom as we used to have in message cards. So speaking about adaptive cards and designing them, what can we do actually to create it? So first URL that we should open is the adaptivecards.io/designer. This is the place where we can actually create those adaptive cards using drag and drop editor. However, we have tools that we can actually use in majority of developer tools. So for example, if you go into Visual Studio Code, we can download an extension that is called the Adaptive Cards Viewer that can help us to display the card if we have a JSON. We have as well Adaptive Cards Visualizer for the App Studio, in the App Studio in Microsoft Teams. We have WPF Visualizer. So if you're working on Windows applications and you want to use adaptive cards, there is a tool for that. There is also a very useful tool that is called an Actionable Messages Debugger for Outlook. So if you're sending actionable messages to Outlook and you want to check what's wrong, why they are not responding, why they're not sending any messages back from the interface, from the email, then this debugger is really helpful and can well, help you to find what's the issue. Just let me jump to the Adaptive Cards designer. So this is the designer that has been created by David Lowe, and today it survived already 2 Microsoft builds, and I just realized that with each Microsoft build, this designer is being extended, is being developed with the new features. So, for example, after the last build, we were finally given this target version selector, so we can actually say for which Adaptive Cards SDK version we are trying to craft our card. But nevertheless, the majority of the functionalities is still the same. So if you want to create your card, you simply have to put those elements on the canvas and then actually just go into the properties and configure it according to your needs. One more thing that is really new is a functionality that is already present in vNext. So this is the designer where the team is experimenting with all the new features that possibly will come up someday, one day. And so here, once you go into a new card, so that's also a new feature that arrived after build, then in the regular Adaptive Cards designer, you can actually just pick one of the existing cards and then start with it as a let's say landings or starting page or starting JSON code. However, there is also one cool new feature here at the bottom that is called to create an adaptive card from an image. And then if you'd like to try it, you can upload your own image, but you can as well try from one of the examples present here. I tried yesterday, worked for Google Ads that I print screened. It didn't work for some more advanced layout that I thought could be also presented as a card. However, you can try with the existing sample. So I hope that one day, once this machine learning that is behind is really trained well, this technology will work even cooler. So you only need to paint your adaptive cards, your actually card layout, and then use this designer and convert your image to the working adaptive cards JSON code. So that's cool. Okay, so with that said, I want now to jump over to the first demo, the demo for adaptive cards, just to show you how it works. So actually, what is adaptive card? This is the adaptive cards, the JSON code that we define. Now, how it works? Let me show you. The scenario I want to present is about processing invoices. So there is my employee called John Researcher, and he has this application to scan invoices and then send them for approval. And imagine the situation that you do have such a solution in your company, then possibly usually after scanning an invoice, it is being sent to some SharePoint asset or any other database, and then there is a task generated for the accounting team to review the invoice. So they have to actually open the task, then navigate from the task to the document, and review the document, then go back to the task, then possibly maybe open even a form if we are working on the Power Platform, and approval tasks in Power Automate are separated from Power Apps. So there is a lot of places that this accounting team should go to actually complete their work. Now, what if everything they actually need is simply stored within a single Microsoft Teams channel where they are working, when they are collaborating, and where they have all the documentation and all the things that actually they need to complete their task? Well, with adaptive cards, we can even support them more with this scenario. So here, John actually picks, sorry, not this icon. First, they need to pick a document. Now let me find it. Where can it be? I think it was somewhere here. Okay. So first, they pick a new invoice, they scan it. And right now, there is AI Builder underneath that is analyzing this scanned image. that is analyzing contents. And according to the model that was built on top of the previous invoices having the same layout, it is now able to actually detect the fields with a confidence that is displayed here as well. So here not only we see that those specific areas were recognized, but as well we know how much confident the AI builder was that this is actually a contact. So right now the data is identified. I can now send this invoice for approval. And what this will do, it will simply now grab the information from this invoice, and it will build up an adaptive card that will be sent to a Microsoft Teams channel. Imagine this is a Microsoft Teams channel dedicated for the accountancy team, where anyone from the team can actually review the content and say approve or no. So right in here, this is a new card sent just a minute ago by my Power Automate. And what I can see here is actually all the information that I need to justify if I actually want to approve this invoice or maybe I want to reject it. So I don't need to go to a document itself. Well, I can put here a button to navigate to the document so that accountant can actually compare the information. However, even here, I already have all the information that I possibly need to justify my decision. So I will say and approve. And right now, this card is going to be collapsed, is going to be closed and replaced by the confirmation information that unfortunately is a bit different from what has been created by me. But hopefully one day we'll be also able to design this confirmation card that is replacing the original one so that we have more control over the general user experience. So how was that built actually? It is here. So let me just refresh it and go back to the latest run that is here. The first thing that is happening is actually the AI builder is analyzing the document, and then once I hit that button in Power Apps, that triggered my flow. Next things that are happening is actually the data from the AI builder that was recognized is passed as the parameters to my Power Automate. So then they are just assigned to those variables, and therefore I can use them to actually put on the card then. Then there is a try-catch pattern, because if there is anything wrong within the Power Automate, I don't want actually to fail, but I want to be notified that there is an issue so I can somehow react. And so what is happening later? Then all the invoice items, so what the items from the invoice are being parsed, and then for each actually item, I'm looping and adding the details to a general JSON code. So there is a lot of work I have to do, a lot of work around concatenation and merging all this information together. And then finally, once this code is created, once those items are merged together, this code is being sent to Microsoft Teams channel using one of the two new actions that have arrived in January this year that are called post an adaptive cards to a Teams channel and wait for the response. And the second action is called post an adaptive card to a Teams user and wait for the response. So before these two actions appeared, we were actually able to post an adaptive card to Teams, but there was no reason we were able to get back the data from that adaptive card. So even if we put there a form, then once user was hitting the submit button, there was always just a message that there is a problem with communication to the host, to the bot actually, because this approach that we are sending adaptive cards to Teams is handled by the bot service that is called the flow bot. So this action is quite simple. You have to define the team, the channel, and then the contents. Now this content here, the message here, is actually just a plain JSON that you have to put in. Now, we change to the new version. If we turn on the experimental features, you can notice a small change in that action, because what is coming up, the first change that is going to happen to this action is that very soon it will be replaced by this new layout. So you'll be able actually to create this adaptive card just inside the Power Automate designer. So you don't have to navigate to the Adaptive Cards designer. This will be possible just inside the flow. I'll just back to the regular version because this one works sometimes better, sometimes worse. And so once it's actually executed, Power Automate is actually sending this adaptive card to Microsoft Teams channel and is waiting. Just as it is waiting for a regular Power Automate approval task, here it is also waiting until 30 days for the feedback, for the response. And then based on the response, if it is approval or rejection, it is sending a different email to the requester about their invoice that was approved or rejected. Cool. How do you like it? Let me just check the chat briefly. No questions. Cool. All right. So the second thing I wanted to show you about the Power Automate and Adaptive Cards and Microsoft Teams and what we are really expecting from the nearest future is the functionality that helps us as well to govern Microsoft Teams. Once you switch to Power Platform Preview, so you can request for the Power Platform Preview environment that will be under the preview flow in Microsoft Com, you will notice that there are actually even two more triggers coming up. The first one is called command load for selected message, and then the second trigger is called once a user is added to a Teams, to a channel. To a channel. So with these two new triggers, you can actually help the general governance of your Microsoft Teams to work even smoother. Now, what is really cool about this trigger for selected message? Basically, it is also related to adaptive cards. So you can create a card that is displayed for this cited message, and then you can actually handle the outcome and, well, act accordingly. In my example, what I'm doing, I'm actually displaying a pop-up with the question, what would user like to do with this message? Maybe report or delete or send a copy. Unfortunately, it is not possible to automate deletion today because there is no endpoint in Graph API to actually trigger deletion of the message in Microsoft Teams. However, this can be sent later to Teams administrator, and then Teams administrator can just delete the message manually. The point is, this action actually returns a set of information like Teams ID, channel ID, and as well information about what is the message that we are talking about. So let me show you how it works. Once I navigate to Microsoft Teams again, and I click the ellipsis icon, there is this option called More Actions. The flows that you will be able to create using this trigger will all appear here. And well, actually, the label here is just a flow name. So again, be aware that you're using a very readable flow name and that it's not very complex and it explains itself. So once I hit my flow name, it actually pop-ups with this overlay with adaptive card I have designed. And for example, I want to report this adaptive card because and submit. Now what it does is actually triggers this Power Automate that you have seen here. And it sends me as a Teams manager or Teams administrator the card with information that there is a message that has been reported. Why was it reported? Who reported it? And I can as well go now here and open this message. It's going to be highlighted with this yellow hello, so that I, as administrator, I already know what is the issue and what should I do with that. So this is another example how you can use adaptive cards. Okay, how much time do I have? Now, still no questions. Okay, so let me just jump over with my presentation. We've been here. Keep in mind the example I showed you with the invoices, because it's kind of a significant. And also remember that I mentioned I let's say committed a lot of work and efforts to actually create the flow that takes all these rows, those items from the invoice, and then concatenates them, merges them, and prepare the final JSON for the presentation. Now, imagine a situation that you don't have to actually do it manually, that you simply create a template, and then the template is filled with the information and actually just displays this data. Cool. So with Adaptive Cards, the version already 1.2, this is in a preview, but with version 1.3, maybe 1.4 or 2 something, this will arrive in a general or the public version. We are already given the Adaptive Cards templating. Now, templating is actually built from 3 pillars. First one is templating language, then is templating service, and lastly, there is templating SDK. What is templating in general? Well, this actually helps you to simplify creation of adaptive cards, because you also need to focus only on the content. You only need to put the placeholders within the content, and then these placeholders are going to be replaced in the at the time of the rendering, the card rendering, with the data you provide. So how does it work? Or actually, oh, I see you, Galen. So actually, once you navigate to Adaptive Cards Designer, you can actually notice that there is the templating language and templating, yes, okay, templating SDK as well present, because this information here you can see, for example, here key value. Maybe let me just refresh it. There should be even more, or not, but some of this information are already presented by the adaptive card information, so by the templating information. So here we have the adaptive card code, and next to it you have the data. So if I, for example, now bind this label with the title, this should replace this text with the title. So then once I go into preview mode, yeah, that should just switch from the actual display to the root title, as you can see in the fact set. But the point is that you can actually provide the data, and then this is being dynamically replaced. So let me show you my example. So I have my JSON of the invoice card. So this is my invoice. No, not this one, sorry. Well, it's the JSON. All right. So this is the information. This is my adaptive card code that you've already seen for the invoicing scenario. However, here some things are replaced actually with those placeholders, with those let's say lookups to the data. And the data in my case is not separated as a separate JSON. This is just stored here above as a data scope. So all the information I want to actually use in my card are stored along with this JSON. And then once I switch to preview mode, those placeholders will be replaced with the actual information, or not. Now, why not? That's a good question. Maybe I have just forgot to do something, or maybe something changed with the adaptive card templating language. Now, anyway, this is not the moment to actually debug it. But the point is, this should work as the example I showed you with the original card. I need to debug why it's not working. That I have this, for example, table of items defined once. However, the data that is provided, because it's a table data, is automatically creating new rows within the card for each item from that table. So as you can see here, right? And the same actual example, the same outcome should be visible for my example, but well, sorry, didn't check it. I thought it should be working, but actually something changed. The point is that with Adaptive Cards templating, you can actually create just a template and then provide the JSON with the data, and don't create these huge flows to go through the items, to go through the values, and then concatenate them together. You have to just merge the data and send to the host, and the host is just generating the card with the data automatically, and everything is done ad hoc, so you don't have to actually focus on that. So this is really cool technology. This is still in the preview though. And one more thing I wanted to show you about this templating thing is the templating service. So once you navigate to Graph Explorer, you can notice that it is already in the new layout. So that was as well released during the build conference. But once you, for example, go to the My Profile and you display this JSON of the My Profile information, you can as well notice here is a new tab, new button available that is called Adaptive Cards. Now, what you can see here is just this Adaptive Cards templating service and the language, because the service is, well, it's a service built on top of the LUIS and GitHub stored templates. And so LUIS, so the Language Understanding Intelligence Service, is actually reviewing all the templates stored in the GitHub and is trying to find one that is matching the most the content that is sent. So this is the data, and the templating service is simply looking for the template that has the highest confidence regarding the similarity to this data format. And then once I switch to Adaptive Card, you can see it's fetching it and then simply displays the ready-to-use Adaptive Card. And then the services we have in Adaptive Cards is simply returning once called the fully working Adaptive Cards code that we can just simply grab and use in our application. The point is that with this technology, we will be able one day, because there is also an Adaptive Cards authoring service coming up, we will be able to simply build those templates along our company, across our company. We will be able to have our repository of those templates, and then simply enforce maybe users to just use the templates that were pre-created by marketing team, so that all the communication is done within the company is just unified and is following the same patterns and the same layouts. Okay, how are we doing the questions? No new questions. Okay. Speaking about the next releases, today we have this version 1.2 that is release productive. We can use it in what framework? We can use it partially in Teams. Teams is supporting almost every actions, every functions that are present in version 1.2. They're not yet supporting the templating language. The coolest things that I have always on my mind when speaking about the Adaptive Cards version 1.1 and 1.2 is that we have the media support, so we can play video, we can play audio directly from the card. That is not supported in Teams. We can as well pass images as base64 encoded strings, so don't always need to use the path and the target URL. And with version 1.3, or maybe even later, what should arrive are a couple of features I'll just talk about in a moment. Yeah, and I'll just jump onto the roadmap. So if you're interested in the roadmap, if you want to know what is coming up, what the team is working on, simply go to the URL ak.ms/ac roadmap, and there you will find the product board website where you can actually see all the new features that are coming, that they are working on, with their previews, with their visualizations, so you can just have a sneak peek what is upcoming. You can as well submit your idea. So if you have a very outstanding need or an idea to enhance, to make the product better, you can just do it yourself and submit. If it's reviewed and it's just accepted, it will appear here. Speaking about the roadmap, the cool thing that is coming up with the new versions is this templating language, full support regarding the expressions, regarding the advanced validation, regarding the, for example, loops and conditional rules. So we'll be actually able to build those cards, those templates in even more advanced way. Plus, what is coming to the templating language are also scopes. One of the scope that I'm really excited about is called a device scope. And this scope will let you to actually get data about a device, about the host that is displaying the card. So you'll know, for example, the browser name, the operating system name, the version. So with that, you'll be able to create a single card, but conditionally display different parts depending on what host is displaying it. So display different logo on Android, display different logo on iOS, and so on. This is a plan. I keep my fingers crossed for those well, ideas for those plans to get to life. And well, I will keep you updated what is coming up. And with that said, thank you very much for your presence, for you listening to me. I don't still know if there are any questions. No, not yet. If you have any questions, though, you can simply email me or reach me over my Teams channel or any other kind of channel like LinkedIn or YouTube, and I'll gladly help you and answer all your questions. So once again, thank you very much, and have a wonderful rest of the conference.